Today's lesson, 74. Simplifying square roots. What is a square root? A square root is a symbol that looks like this. We have learned the perfect squares so far. An example of a perfect square is something like the square root of 49. The square root of 49 equals 7 because 7 times 7 equals 49. 7 to the second power. The second power undoes that square root function. Those things are opposite of each other. So if I look at the square root of 81, I know that's equal to 9. Today's lesson, we're going to look at things like the square root of 12. What does the square root of 12 equal? Well, it's an irrational number that can be simplified. I look at 12 for the factors of 12, one of which is our perfect square. Let's take a look at what our perfect squares are once again. The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 9 is 3. The square root of 16 equals 4. Square root of 25 is 5. The square root of 36 is 6. Square root of 49 is 7. Square root of 64 is 8. Square root of 81 is 9. Square root of 100 is 10. The square root of 121 is 11. And the square root of 144 is 12. Those you should commit to memory if you have not already done so. You should know most of those by heart. So as I look at the square root of 12, I want to ask myself, which one of the numbers that are underneath here can come from 12? Which one has a factor? Which one is a factor of 12? How can I break that down into two things that multiply to get 12, one of which are the numbers that are underneath the radicand? The answer to the question is 4 times 3. I would choose 4 times 3 because the square root of 4 is 2. The radical 3 cannot be simplified, so it's just left radical 3. So the square root of 12 simplifies to 2 radical 3, or to the square root of 3. Same thing. Let's take a look at another example. Let's look at the square root of 150. I have to look at 150 and find a factor of 150. Notice it has a lot of different factors. 10 times 15, 5 times something gets 150. Which one is going to help us out in simplifying this radicand? What I would do is use 25. 25, think of quarters. How many quarters does it take to make $1.50? And the answer would be 6. The square root of 25 is then 5, and the square root of 6 just falls there. So the square root of 150 simplifies to be 5 times the square root of 6. Let's take a look at a couple others. Really a very simple concept. Let's take a look at the square root of 200. I see the square root of 200 as the product of 100 times 2. 100 I use because the square root of 100 is 10. So the square root of 100 times the square root of 2. The square root of 100 is 10, and the radical 2 just stays. 10 times the square root of 2 would be your answer. Let's do a couple more. let's look at the square root of 75. Which one of these do you see in 75?